My beloved child. Before you let your eyes close tonight, there is something your heart needs to hear. Not tomorrow. Not after another restless night of wondering why a certain connection still follows you into the quiet. Tonight. Because somewhere beneath the silence, someone who once believed they could live without you has finally admitted the truth they kept pushing away. They are afraid of losing you again. And the word, again, carries more weight than you realize. You may think the first loss was the day communication faded, the moment distance entered, or the night one of you chose silence instead of honesty. But that was not the first time. The first loss happened much earlier, in a moment so small that neither of you understood its meaning. A moment when your soulmate had the chance to tell you what they truly felt and let fear speak instead. Tonight, they remember it clearly. The room around them is dim. A single lamp is glowing near the edge of a table, casting a soft shadow across an untouched cup. Their phone rests nearby, face down, but they keep looking toward it as though it might suddenly say your name. They have picked it up more than once. They have opened a message, typed a few words, erased them, and locked the screen again. What could they possibly say after so much has been left unsaid? That question has followed them through the entire day. It was there while they answered ordinary conversations with distracted smiles. It was there while they walked past places that should have meant nothing, yet somehow reminded them of you. It was there when a familiar song played unexpectedly, bringing back not a dramatic memory, but the sound of your voice saying something simple they never appreciated enough at the time. You once asked them, "Do you ever think about what might happen if we stop talking?" They remember how lightly they answered. They acted as though the question was too serious. They changed the subject. Maybe they laughed, or offered some careless reassurance that neither of you fully believed. But tonight, those words have returned with painful clarity. They finally understand that you were not asking for a promise. You were asking whether your absence would matter. It matters more than they can explain. There was a time when they mistook your patience for permanence. They believed that because you understood their complicated moods, you would always understand their silence. Because you forgave their hesitation, you would keep forgiving it. Because your heart remained open after disappointment, they assumed it would never close. But something has shifted in you. They can feel it even from a distance. Perhaps you have not announced it. Perhaps you have not said, "I am moving on." Yet the energy of your heart is no longer standing in the same doorway, waiting for someone to decide whether to enter. You are beginning to choose peace over confusion. You are learning that love should not require you to abandon your dignity. And somehow, without hearing those words from you, your soulmate senses that the time they thought they had is disappearing. This is why tonight feels different. Earlier, something unexpected happened. Someone mentioned the future in a casual conversation. They spoke about new beginnings, second chances, and how people sometimes meet the right person at the wrong time. Your soulmate remained quiet, but inside, something opened. They suddenly saw an image of you not as you were in the past, but as you might be in a future that no longer includes them. They saw you laughing without wondering why they had not called. They saw you sleeping peacefully without checking your phone. They saw you giving another person the tenderness they once received but failed to protect. That image disturbed them more than jealousy ever could. Because it was not about someone else taking you away. It was about realizing that their own indecision may have taught you how to live without them. They stood near a window after that conversation ended. Outside, the evening was settling slowly over everything. Lights appeared in distant homes. Cars moved through the streets. Life continued with an ordinary calm that felt almost cruel. Your soulmate pressed their hand against the cool glass and whispered something they had never allowed themselves to say aloud. I already lost them once. But what did they mean? They were not only speaking about the visible separation between you. They were remembering a time when you had offered them the truest version of your heart, and they had responded with uncertainty. You were still present after that moment, but something innocent had changed. You became more careful. You measured your words. You stopped revealing every hope. A small, protected distance formed behind your smile. They noticed it then, but pretended not to. That was the first loss. They lost the version of you who loved without questioning whether it was safe. And now they fear losing the stronger version of you, the one who has learned how to walk away from what keeps wounding them. Your soulmate has spent a long time telling themselves that staying silent was the kinder choice. They believed their complications would burden you. They convinced themselves that distance protected you from uncertainty. In their mind, they turned avoidance into sacrifice, never admitting that fear was hiding beneath every excuse. Fear of failing you. Fear of choosing you and discovering they were not enough. Fear of being fully known and then abandoned. So they left the decision unfinished, believing an unfinished story could not become a tragedy. But unfinished stories create their own kind of pain. They remain alive in every unanswered question, every late-night memory, every imagined conversation that never happened. Tonight, your soulmate is no longer able to hide from that truth. They remember one particular evening with startling detail. The air was cooler than expected. You were standing near them, trying to appear calm, but your fingers kept moving nervously. You said there was something you needed to know. You did not demand a declaration. You simply wanted honesty. Is this real to you, you asked, or am I the only one feeling it? They wanted to say, it is real. It frightens me because it is real. Instead, they paused too long. That pause became an answer you were never meant to receive. You looked away, and although the conversation continued, a door quietly closed inside you. Your soulmate saw it happen. They saw the brightness leave your expression. Yet they let the moment pass because they assumed there would always be another opportunity. There was not. Not in the same way. Now they would give almost anything to return to those few seconds, not to create a perfect speech, but simply to reach for your hand before doubt convinced you that you were alone in what you felt. This is the message their heart has been trying to form all night. Please read this before you fall asleep. I cannot lose you twice. But those words are only the beginning. Because tonight they have discovered something that changes the meaning of everything between you. It came through a conversation they were never supposed to hear. Your name was not spoken at first, but the details were unmistakable. Someone close to the situation revealed that you had made a private decision weeks ago. You had decided to stop waiting. Not because your love disappeared, but because waiting had begun to change who you were. You were tired of waking with hope and falling asleep with questions. You were tired of defending a connection that offered moments of beauty but no certainty. You chose to place your future in your own hands again. When your soulmate learned this, they felt the ground shift beneath them. For the first time, the possibility of losing you was no longer imaginary. It had a direction. It had movement. You were not standing still anymore. And while they had been gathering courage slowly, your heart had been learning how to release them. Their first reaction was not anger. It was silence. Then came regret. Not the shallow regret of someone who simply dislikes consequences, but the deeper recognition that they had misunderstood your strength. They thought your love would keep you waiting. They never realized your love might become the reason you finally leave, because genuine love cannot survive forever without truth. They walked away from the conversation before anyone noticed their expression. In a quiet hallway, they leaned against the wall and closed their eyes. A memory surfaced, you telling them that one day you might become too tired to keep hoping. At the time, they answered, "You will not." Tonight, they whispered, "You did." But there is another part of this story you have not seen. Your soulmate has already started changing something in their life. Not speaking about change. Not imagining it. Taking an actual step. Earlier today, they ended an arrangement that had kept them emotionally trapped. It may have been an obligation, an old promise, a pattern of pleasing everyone except themselves, or a situation they once believed they could never leave. They finally said, "I cannot keep living a life chosen by fear." The word surprised even them. Someone asked what had brought this on. Your soulmate almost said your name. Instead, they looked down and replied, "I remembered who I was before I became afraid of everything that mattered." That decision does not erase the past. It does not automatically repair the distance. They know this. They understand that returning to you with promises would not be enough. You have heard beautiful intentions before. What you need now is something steady, honest, and real. So they are not preparing a dramatic declaration. They are preparing the truth. And the truth includes a confession that may be difficult for you to hear. There was a moment when they nearly reached out, but another person convinced them not to. This person did not necessarily act with cruelty. They believed they were being practical. They told your soulmate that contacting you would reopen old wounds, that you were probably happier without them, and that real love sometimes means letting someone go. Your soulmate listened because those words gave fear a respectable disguise. But tonight, they learned that the same person had recently spoken with someone who knows you. That is how the news of your decision reached them. And in that strange chain of conversation, your soulmate discovered something else. You had not been waiting for an apology. You had been waiting for honesty. That realization broke through every defense they had built. They had spent so long trying to find the perfect moment, the perfect explanation, the perfect version of themselves to bring back to you. But you never asked for perfection. You wanted them to stop hiding behind uncertainty and tell you whether the connection mattered enough to fight for. Now the night is growing quieter. Their message is still unsent. The cursor blinks on the screen like a heartbeat. They have written the first sentence several times, but each version feels too small for everything that needs to be said. Then they type. "Before you fall asleep, I need you to know that my silence was never the absence of love." They stare at the sentence. Their thumb moves toward the send button, then stops. Because the next sentence contains the revelation they have never shared with anyone, not their friends, not the person who advised them to let you go, and certainly not you. It is the reason they believe they have already lost you once before. Long before the distance, long before the unanswered messages, your soulmate was given a chance to choose a different future. A choice involving you. A choice they secretly made but never had the courage to reveal. And tonight, they have decided you deserve to know what they chose. They begin typing again. I need to tell you what I did the night I realized I loved you. But before they can finish, a new message suddenly appears on their screen. It is from you. The message from you contains only 7 words. Did you ever mean what you said? Your soulmate stops breathing for a moment. Of all the things you could have written, you chose the one question they have been avoiding for longer than they want to admit. Not because they do not know the answer, but because answering honestly will require them to uncover a promise they made in secret, a promise that shaped every decision that followed. They read your message again. The room seems to narrow around them. The lamp hums softly. Somewhere outside, a car door closes, and footsteps disappear down the street. Ordinary sounds continue, but your soulmate feels as if the entire night has paused, waiting to see whether they will finally choose courage over caution. Their fingers hover above the keyboard. They could give you an easy answer. Yes, I meant it. But that sentence would not be enough. You are no longer asking whether they felt something once. You are asking whether every tender word, every lingering glance, and every moment that made you believe there was a future between you was real, or whether your heart created meaning where none existed. They know the wrong answer could close the distance forever. So instead of replying immediately, they open an old folder on their phone. Inside it are photographs they never deleted. Not romantic pictures posed for anyone else to see. Small, almost forgettable moments. A shadow of the two of you stretched across the pavement. A cup you left near a window. A blurry photograph taken while you were laughing and turning away. A screenshot of a message you once sent after midnight. Someday, I hope you stop being afraid of good things. Your soulmate presses the screen with their thumb as though touching the words could bring back the person who wrote them. Then they remember the night everything nearly changed. It happened months before the silence became permanent. You had gone home believing the evening was ordinary. You did not know that after you left, your soulmate remained alone in the parking lot, sitting behind the wheel with the engine turned off. The streetlights reflected across the windshield. Their hands were still resting on the steering wheel, but they had no intention of driving. Your last words kept returning to them. I do not need you to know the whole future. I only need to know whether you want me in it. That night, your soulmate made a decision. They chose you. Not in a vague, emotional way. They took a concrete step. They called someone whose approval had controlled too many parts of their life and said they were done allowing other people to determine whom they could love. The conversation became tense almost immediately. The voice on the other end warned them that choosing you would complicate everything. It would disappoint people. It would force hidden truths into the open. It might require them to walk away from a life that looked stable from the outside. Your soulmate listened, then said something they had never said before. I would rather rebuild my life honestly than keep living one that does not belong to me. For several minutes, they felt free. They imagined calling you. They pictured your face when they told you they had finally chosen the future you had quietly hoped for. They even began driving toward your home. But halfway there, something happened. A second call came through. The person on the phone told them that you had been seen with someone else. They described the location. They mentioned the hour. They claimed you looked happy, close, and completely unaffected by the uncertainty between you. They said you had probably already made your choice. Your soulmate did not ask enough questions. That was their mistake. They let one unverified story undo the bravest decision they had ever made. They turned the car around. You never knew how close they came. Now, staring at your 7-word message, they finally understand that the story they believed that night may not have been true. The person who spoke to them had only seen a fragment. What looked like intimacy may have been a farewell. What looked like happiness may have been you trying not to break in public. Your soulmate has spent months building conclusions around a moment they never witnessed for themselves. And suddenly, the meaning of your question becomes painfully clear. Did you ever mean what you said? You may not be asking about love. You may be asking why someone who claimed to care could disappear without giving you the dignity of an explanation. They type slowly. Yes. I meant all of it. But I believed something that night, and instead of asking you the truth, I let it decide everything. They do not send it. Not yet. Because another memory has surfaced. Several days after they turned the car around, you reached out. Your message was calm, almost too calm. You said you hoped they were doing well. You asked whether something had changed. You gave them an opening wide enough to tell you everything. They responded with distance. They told you they needed time. What they never told you was that they were waiting for you to prove the story wrong without knowing there was a story to defend yourself against. Your soulmate now sees the unfairness of it. They were silently asking you to answer an accusation you had never heard. Each time you respected their space, they interpreted it as confirmation. Each time you refused to chase, they assumed you had chosen someone else. Two people were protecting their pride from different versions of the same misunderstanding. And time did what time always does when honesty is delayed. It made the distance look intentional. Your message remains open. Your soulmate decides they cannot answer with a sentence. They tap the call button. It rings once. Twice. Then stops. You decline the call. Their heart sinks, but before fear can take control, another message arrives. I cannot hear your voice yet. Just tell me the truth. The word "yet" changes everything. It is not forgiveness. It is not an invitation to return. But it means the door is not completely closed. Your soulmate sits down at the edge of the bed and begins writing. This time they do not edit every line. They stop trying to sound composed. They tell you about the parking lot. They tell you about the decision. They tell you about the phone call and the story that made them turn around. They admit that instead of trusting what existed between you, they trusted the fear that losing you had already happened. Then they write the sentence that has lived inside them ever since. I did not leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I convinced myself you had already chosen a life without me. They send it. The message disappears from the screen and enters the silence between you. For several minutes, nothing happens. Your soulmate walks across the room, unable to remain still. Their mind creates every possible reaction. Anger. Disbelief. Silence. Perhaps you will tell them that the explanation has arrived too late. Then the typing indicator appears. It vanishes. It returns. Finally, your reply arrives. The person you heard about was my cousin. I was helping him prepare to leave the country. Your soulmate reads the sentence again, hoping they misunderstood it. They did not. The entire separation was built on something that was never true. A wave of regret moves through them so sharply that they have to sit down. They think of every month spent trying to forget you. Every night you probably wondered what you had done wrong. Every opportunity lost because they trusted a stranger's interpretation more than the person they claimed to love. They begin typing an apology, but another message from you arrives before they can finish. I knew someone had told you something. I just never knew what. This revelation stops them. How did you know? They type. Your answer does not come immediately. When it does, it raises a deeper question. Because the same person came to me later. The room feels suddenly colder. Your soulmate leans closer to the screen. They ask what was said. You reply that the person apologized for interfering. They admitted they had shared an assumption as though it were a fact. But that was not the most important part of the conversation. The person also told you that your soulmate had been driving toward you that night. Until this moment, your soulmate believed that detail belonged only to them. They ask why you never confronted them. Your answer is simple. Because by then, you had already told me you needed space. I thought you had changed your mind. The truth lands quietly, but its weight is enormous. You both knew pieces of what happened. Neither of you knew enough. And because each of you was afraid of appearing foolish, the missing pieces remained missing. Your soulmate lowers their head. For the first time, they allow themselves to imagine the future that nearly began that night. They imagine arriving at your door. They imagine telling you that they had finally stood up to the people who wanted them to remain unchanged. They imagine how one honest conversation might have prevented months of pain. But regret cannot reopen the past. It can only demand a different choice now. They type, "I am sorry." Then they delete it. Not because they are not sorry, but because the words feel too small. They try again. "I understand if this changes nothing. But I need you to know that I was on my way to choose you, and I have hated myself for turning around." This time, they send it. Your reply takes longer. While they wait, your soulmate notices something they had overlooked earlier. The time beside your first message. You wrote just before midnight. This was not a random impulse. You waited until the end of the day, perhaps debating whether to contact them at all. Perhaps something happened tonight that pushed you toward the question you could no longer carry. When your response finally appears, it does not mention forgiveness. It says, "Something happened today. That is why I reached out." Your soulmate's chest tightens. They ask what happened. You do not answer directly. Instead, you write, "I found the letter." Their mind searches for meaning. What letter? 3 dots appear, but no message follows. Your soulmate stands and crosses the room to the drawer where they keep old documents. Beneath a stack of receipts and folded pages is an envelope they have not opened in months. The envelope is empty. They know immediately which letter you mean. The night they chose you, before the phone call that changed their direction, they wrote something by hand. They intended to give it to you when they arrived. It was not a confession of temporary emotion. It was a detailed promise about the life they were prepared to build. After turning around, they hid it away. At least, they believed they had. They type, "Where did you find it?" Your answer arrives. "It was left outside my door this morning." Your soulmate feels every muscle in their body become still. They did not leave it there. No one was supposed to know the letter existed. They call you again. This time, you answer, but neither of you speaks immediately. Your breathing is faint on the other side. Your soulmate closes their eyes. After all the silence, the sound of you being there feels almost unreal. Finally, you whisper, "There is something written on the back that was not there before." Your soulmate grips the phone. What does it say? You hesitate. When you speak again, your voice is unsteady, not with fear, but with the emotional strain of someone holding a truth too large to carry alone. It says, "Ask them what happened after they turned the car around." Your soulmate opens their eyes. Because there was something that happened afterward. Something they never told you. Something that explains why they stayed away even after discovering the story about you might have been false. And the only other person who knew that secret disappeared from their life months ago. Your soulmate takes a slow breath and says, "Before I tell you, I need to know who brought that letter to your door." There is a pause. Then you answer with a name. A name your soulmate has not heard since the night everything fell apart. A name belonging to someone they were told had left the city for good. And before they can respond, you whisper one final sentence. They are standing across the street right now. Your soulmate does not answer immediately. The name echoes through every memory they have been trying to understand. For months, they believed that person had vanished from their life forever. Yet somehow, they had returned, carrying the very letter that was never supposed to leave its hiding place. Your soulmate steadies their voice. "Please, don't go outside alone. Stay where you are. I'm coming." There is no hesitation this time.